welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. We have a heck of a show for you again today. We are going to talk about the best and the worst fans in football and possibly some of the worst fans in all of sports. We have a couple other things we want to talk to you about as well, things he's not telling me we're going to discuss, which always makes me nervous, so it should be an interesting show. My name is Kyle, and as always, I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who is old enough to remember when kickers were not specialty players, my dad, Tim.
It seems like forever since I've even seen you.
It's been a little bit.
I've been running and out of town. You've been running everywhere and not feeling well and whatever again.
I don't know what's going on, but we'll figure it out. It's part of life, man. I mean, that's how it's been since I've been a kid. I'm sick for a while, and then I feel great, and then I feel sick for a while. It is what it is.
Every time I call you, I'm exhausted.
I am. I have been exhausted lately.
Go and get a blood test.
I am.
Okay.
I am. I have to get one all the time.
I know you do.
I know my doctor better than I know half the people in my life at this point, I think. It's pretty crazy. And for those of you that don't know, it has nothing to do with anything crazy. I was very sick when I was a kid, ended up having something called acute intermittent porphyria. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, because I still don't fully know what it is. But I have to get checked up all the time.
Weren't you like one of 20 people in the world that have boys?
At the time, I was one of 25 males in the world, one of like 2,500 people in the world that were actually diagnosed with this disease. They found it by mistake. It was crazy. They ended up confirming it, and it's just something I live with.
I will forever be grateful to. She lived literally 2 houses from me.
Yeah.
When she was little, Dr. Kreckman.
Yeah, she ended up sending some random tests to Utah and Mayo Clinic. They ended up finding out, hey, that's exactly what this is, and it's just something you learn to deal with. It's genetic, probably a lot more people have this than you even realize. But it's not terrible. It's just something you deal with. But yeah, every once in a while, my immune system says, I'm tired. I'm going to take a break, and you're going to get sick for a little bit, and we fight through it, and Crystal calls me a baby, and then we move on with life.
Well, at least she's pegged you then.
Yeah, it's where I miss my grandma, your mom, because she spoiled me when I was sick. She loved me.
Tell me about it.
And my wife doesn't do that. And it makes me sad. I just want to be spoiled once when I'm sick again.
Wait a minute. Grandparents are there to spoil?
Yeah.
Technically, I don't think she's there to spoil you. She's got children for that, and I've got grandchildren for that.
Listen, I hear it from her. It's still a want. I'm not saying it's
Sounds
right.
like a whine.
It is a whine.
Okay.
It is. I just remind her that my grandmother loved me more clearly. And she said, yep, clearly she does. And then she walks away from me.
And good for her.
Yeah.
By the way,
she doesn't fall for it anymore.
These last couple days are days I love being in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's been gorgeous.
No humidity.
Right.
72 degrees.
Right. I won't go in your house. I can tell you that right now.
Why?
Because you randomly decide that the air doesn't need to be on.
Because look, you turn on a 72 degree day, I walk into your house, it's like walking into a freezer.
It's not that bad.
Oh my God.
It's at 72 at all times.
It is
72 to 74.
When it's 70 degrees outside, let's turn the air on.
You do realize that there's no airflow in the house.
Call the window open
when the air's not on, and there's no wind. You have a furnace. Your house is 78 degrees on a 72-degree day.
I gotta be honest with you. I've noticed the older I've gotten, the colder I've gotten. I have become my mother, honestly.
Dude, I am all game on saving money and doing that stuff. It's crazy to me, though, because it's 72 outside, but it is 78 degrees inside your house.
And
it's nuts.
And for me, it's freezing. And then I walk into your house, and it's like walking back into my dad's milk
It's normal.
Cooler.
It's 72 to 74 degrees.
It's walking back into my dad's milk cooler. It's freezing. But
I love days when you can turn off the air though. Those are
Yeah.
for me. Those are like 66-degree days, 65. The wind's blowing. I'll have the windows open all day. Just leave it off, but not on days where it's 75 and there's no wind. I mean, you're just cooking yourself.
Okay. So is
Crazy.
this the weather show, or are we gonna actually?
No, it's just showing people again that you're an old man. But anyways, on to so you sent me a video by TPS. Shout out to TPS.
Well, wait a
They
minute.
do
Before we
great
do that,
videos.
you called me. I do remember when Jerry Kramer, Paul Horning, a lot of the Packers players were actually kickers. You were telling me
Yeah.
about, was it a Cardinal or?
No, a Chief. So
Chief.
Justin Reed, a safety for the Chiefs. And if you haven't seen the video, look it up. He nails a 65-yard field goal in practice. And like another safety was the holder. They're the emergency special teams. The hold was great. The kick was amazing.
Can the Packers make a trade for both of those right now?
Well, the issue is, though, there's nobody in front of them, right? And that's a different ball game when
Wouldn't
you
it matter-
have 11 people running at you.
Somehow somebody would have ran in from off the field to block a punt or a
Probably.
kick from the Packers last year.
Yeah, because that's one thing you want to talk about the NFL before we get into fans here is it's one thing I'm hoping the Packers trend changes, and one thing that I love the Ravens for that they're really good at is special teams is a very important part of the NFL. And I've heard Pat McAfee talk about it. I've heard other people in the NFL talk about it. And it's one of those where it's like you can't forget it. It's very important. And you have a bunch of guys that are used to being the starters on their team on offense or defense. They're used to being stars. They're not used to having to play special teams. And they come in and just don't want to do it. And it shows.
McAfee's not biased at all about special.
McAfee's the most biased person when it comes to
Well,
everything, but he's still fun to listen to. I'm a big fan.
oh yeah. And the Packers, I think, finally have a coach that's engaged
Correct.
because he knocked a guy out on the sidelines of the first preseason game.
Yep.
So I loved it. Guy
I loved
comes
it
off the
too.
field, he was trying to give him a high five. Instead, he just decked him.
Right. Well, and that's where John Harbaugh is so great because he was a special teams coordinator before a head coach and takes special teams seriously.
And
Ditka was always that
Mhm.
way. He was a special teams coordinator. But so many times you get special team coordinators that are just, they look at it as their next stop to being a head coach or a coordinator of
Definitely.
something else.
definitely the problem in Green Bay last year.
Yeah, and it shows. It 100% shows because they don't care. I remember players like Jared Bush for the Packers back in the day who was a Pro Bowl special teams player. And he's like, listen, this is where I am.
Mhm.
This is where I make my mark in the NFL. And you just need more players to realize, listen, you may not start. And even if you do, take this part seriously.
Look at Mark Chimera. He was a tight end for the Packers
Yeah.
for years.
Long
he
snapper,
was on special teams for most of his career.
right?
And it's a way to prove how dedicated you are, how tough you are,
Right.
and it gets you on the rest of the team oftentimes.
It does, and it made me happy to see Andy Reid bringing that. You know, here's two defensive players, you know, wearing 20s, kicking field goals now and holding and doing a great job of it. It's like, okay, these guys take this seriously, and it gets the team rallied, but it can make a huge difference. Somebody takes a punt, the distance, it's everything. A kick gets blocked because your offensive linemen are being lazy. It makes a big difference. Those are points off or on the board.
How many teams do you look at that haven't had a run back in a decade? And Green Bay is one of those teams.
Yeah.
It just takes the wind out of you because you're constantly starting from back of the 15.
Correct.
Or when you get a kick return and there's a penalty every single time.
Yep.
It just is demoralizing.
Yeah, even 5 yards forward makes a big difference.
Mhm.
It's 5 yards you didn't have. So yeah, it's crazy. But where did that change come from? Because obviously I wasn't around for it. I've always seen just kickers, right? Where did that change really come into play?
The first specialty kicker that I can remember was Jan Stenerud of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was the first guy I remember that came in. He was a skier in the University of Wyoming, but obviously from another country, so soccer was big over there.
Right.
He's the first specialty guy I can remember. Him and Mark Mosley, who was a straight-on kicker for Washington, who was the last straight-on kicker for Washington.
MVP.
Mm-hmm. Those were the two that I remember as a kid being specialists.
Got it.
But Jerry Kramer was an outstanding kicker.
Paul Horney was a
Yeah.
kicker, which I didn't know
Yep.
until you and I were talking, and I dug into it a little bit more. I mean, you could go to other teams as well where the kickers were normally offensive linemen or, people that just went in just to kick it. It was just a thing you did.
Garo Permian for the Miami Dolphins.
Say that name 10 times fast.
He was the kicker for the undefeated Miami team. I think when the change came in was when soccer-style kickers came in. Because it always used to be a straight-on kicker.
Right.
And when soccer-style kickers proved to be longer
Correct.
and more accurate,
Correct.
I think that's the change that took place.
I'm happy to see that science has actually changed your opinion on that, because you always used to say, bring back straight-on kickers. They were much more accurate. And I laid out stats time and time again to show you that wasn't the case. That's not factual. And finally you believe it.
Tom Dempsey held the record for the longest kick ever for a long time.
That's not fair. That doesn't count as a straight-on kick.
Are you going to abuse a disabled person?
Oh my God!
Really?
The dude had half a foot.
You're making fun of a disabled person.
I'm not fully counting a record that was kicked by a person that had a club for a foot with a steel-toed shoe. Okay.
Do not make fun of disabled people.
It's not making fun of it. He has the record.
Send the comments to this side of the table, not to this one. I am shouting out and saying, way to go, Tom. Way to be that guy and kick a 63-yard field goal.
I hate you.
With half a foot and a steel-toed.
It was a steel-toe shoe.
That was a heck of a kick, though.
Amazing kick. It took how long to break it, and still only 3 kickers in modern day have either matched or broken that record.
I think one of them was at altitude.
Yeah, Prater was in Denver.
And I think Tom Dempsey, honestly, I think he had...
New Orleans.
He was New Orleans Saint, but I also think he had was missing a hand.
I think you're right on that. Yeah, he was a disabled veteran all the way through. He lost half his foot and half his hand, I think, as a military veteran, right?
I don't know. If somebody knows, put it in the comments.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could have very well been. I mean, I remember Rocky Blyer, who obviously fought in Vietnam, by the way. Thank you to
a lot of those
Vietnam
guys did
veteran.
back in the day.
Yeah, because it was just the draft was around.
The draft was around.
And they went and they fought for their country. Roger Sawback's another one.
Yep.
Lost the first 4 years of his career.
Correct.
Joe
DiMaggio is a big one. Most recently,
Ted Williams.
Who's basketball player? The Admiral.
David Robinson.
Yeah. David Robinson was Naval Academy, and he went and served for 4 years. That was what you did.
He grew while he was at the academy a lot.
Yeah, dude is a big boy.
Yeah,
dude was a big boy. But let us know what you think in the comments below about kickers and specialists and all that fun stuff. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. I remembered this time.
I love it when you remember and I don't have to tell you.
I had it figured out.
So you and I it was like dueling texts.
Yes.
Because you sent it to me just as I was sending it to you.
Correct.
TPS, one of our favorite websites.
Correct.
Had a best and worst fan base.
They did. Just for the NFL.
For the NFL. I disagree with some of them.
I disagree with a portion of them.
I think they left some of them off that should have been in the top 5. They only did the top 5 and the top best and the top low 5 worst.
In case you didn't follow what he just said, which I
please
didn't,
fix that up.
It was the top 5 best fans in the NFL and the 5 worst fan bases in the NFL.
What I said.
Kind of.
I got there.
You got there.
You straightened it out. So, the best fan bases. I can't say the word. The best fan bases were... I can't put on my glasses.
This is why he normally doesn't get to control the show sheet here.
In all honesty, he's exactly right about that.
I was like, I'm not feeling good. The show sheet's on yours, and he's too blind for this.
So, the best were Buffalo, LA Rams, the Cleveland Browns, which I really disagree with, Denver Broncos, and of course the Green Bay Packers.
Correct.
Which some people are going to really vehemently disagree with the Packers. Others will say yes.
It depends what you mean by best fans. If you mean most loyal, which in this case TPS did,
correct.
It was most loyal fans is really what it was.
The Packers have sold out every game.
They're the most loyal. They travel well.
Yes.
They by far have the largest fan base in the United States and probably internationally as well.
Have a probably about a 40-year waiting list for season tickets,
I don't know what it is at this point. It's in that ballpark, though.
something like that.
I know I officially took myself off the waiting list to put the kids on. To me, it just wasn't a thing anymore.
Got it.
But I will say, from an opposing fan standpoint, if you come to Lambeau, Packer fans can be the most obnoxious fans by far. Not away necessarily.
We've seen worse. Packer fans usually treat opposing fans, with the exception of Minnesota.
Even then, I mean, it's one of those things that we've talked about, right? And this is with any fan base, and I don't hold this against anybody. If I'm a Packer fan and I'm going into Tampa Bay, which we've done, if I'm going into Soldier Field, if I'm going into US Bank Stadium in Minnesota, I need to understand this isn't my home field. I'm a guest, and I need to act like it. Now, if you come into Lambeau as a guest...
Hold on, back up. So the Packer fans have to act like guests when they go to US Bank after they were called out by the coach of the Vikings?
Yeah, you still do. It's still not your home field.
Really?
You're still a guest in somebody else's house. You can cheer.
They're going to be cheering loudly.
You can cheer loudly, but don't be obnoxious.
Right.
Like but if you come into Lambeau, into the Packers home field, and you are acting obnoxious yourself as a guest to the stadium, yeah, the Packer fans are going to rip you apart. But if you come in as a guest just to have fun and realize it's just a game, you'll be fine.
Now, you and I agree on something. One of the coolest, classiest things I've ever seen a player do is when the Packer fans went to Carolina and they put a sign up on the field right behind the end zone, and Cam Newton went and tore it down. I thought that was just an awesome move by Cam.
Look up the clip, because it was the Packer fans putting the Packer symbol over North Carolina, saying the Packers own North Carolina. And yeah, Cam Newton came out for warm-ups and ripped the sign down.
As well he should.
It made me love Cam Newton.
Yeah.
It gave me chills watching it. And I heard Packer fans ripping Cam Newton for that. And even those Packer fans getting a lawsuit. If I'm Cam Newton, I sue back. But he was class act and let it go. And what bothered me is Cam Newton came out and apologized.
He shouldn't have.
Why?
Packer fans go into his house and try to cover up his symbol? No.
Can you imagine somebody coming into Lambeau and putting up something from another team on the side of the stadium?
Right where the Lambeau Leap takes place?
Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have to do anything. It would just be taken down.
Right.
Cam Newton took it down, and rightfully so. I loved that.
I loved the move.
I loved it. And that's where Packer fans got a little obnoxious. But most Packer fans were like, yeah, that's what he should have done.
Right.
he gained a fan from me that day.
Absolutely. I mean, we would have done it in Green Bay.
Right.
So, but here's a couple of additions I have to the best fan bases.
Best fan bases.
Oakland, LA,
Oakland,
Las Vegas, Raiders have great fans.
Raiders fans are outstanding. They stick with their team through thick and thin when they have no reason to half the time.
Long-suffering Detroit Lion fans. They still follow, and they still have great attendance there. So I'm giving them a shout out, and they will be in the playoffs this year.
Now they won't be.
Yeah, that's probably true. Chicago Bear fans, I think, are outstanding fans. They follow the team through thick and thin, just like Packer fans. It's that northern division.
Yep.
And then we have the worst. Did I miss anybody on the best fans?
I mean, Viking fans have good fans. They have loyal fans. I'm not a big fan of Viking fans because I think they are that obnoxious fan base.
Do Giants have good fans?
Yeah, Jets have great fans.
I didn't say Jets. I said Giants.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's a lot of bad fan bases in the NFL. New England has a great fan base.
Wait a minute. New England is on my worst list because they're obnoxious. I wanted to say New Orleans.
You can't say New England fans are on your worst list because they're obnoxious and then have the Packers on your best list. That's not how it works.
Yes, it does.
It is not how it works.
No, New England fans are definitely on my worst. They're obnoxious. They weren't even fans until Tom Brady came along.
That's not
true. They thought they're the best ever. Oh, look at us. We've won so much. You haven't done anything until Tom Brady got there.
Yeah, you mean like Packer fans in the 70s and 80s.
Packer fans just went to the games in the 70s and 80s. We lost every week.
Talked about the 60s forever.
It's all they had.
Right. So why are you yelling at New England fans for enjoying their own success?
Because they had nothing before then, and they talk like they've been the greatest team forever and a day, and they're not.
They have been for 20 years.
They're pathetic fans. But New Orleans is New Orleans is a great fan base.
New Orleans has a great fan base. Again, there's not a lot of bad fans. The Rams being in the top 5, I don't know if I agree with that because they've traveled to different places so much.
Well, he started in Cleveland, went to St. Louis for years and years.
Correct.
Went to L.A.
Well, they were L.A. They
were
went from Cleveland to L.A.
and then to St.
and
Louis,
then to
and
St.
then back
Louis.
to L.A. I don't know. Here's who they had as the worst, and tell me what you think. The Washington football team. I refuse to call them the other name. The L.A. Chargers. L.A. Chargers, I think, is legitimate. They are in a stadium that they don't own. They were in San Diego where they had a great
I have my
fan base.
arguments. I'm with you.
Chargers, no. Dallas Cowboys, bad fan base. We didn't say it. This is TBS. I agree. But this one, I definitely agree. Having lived there, Tampa Bay, fair weather fans to the nth degree. And then the team that should be moved to wherever, maybe London, Jacksonville.
So, Washington, I agree with right now.
Because of their owner.
Because of their owner. Washington fans have given up on the team. Now, you go back to when I was first growing up and watching footballs with the Hogettes and the rest of that. They were a rabid fan base.
With John Riggins.
Yes.
And going back even to...
They were a great fan base. But you have a fan base now that is in a terrible stadium that's really been terrible for a long time. You have an owner that just doesn't care about the team.
The owner should be forced to sell at this point.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
You have... I mean, they're just not showing any want or desire to really make their team better on the field. The name's stupid. The Commanders is a dumb name. That was done specifically to annoy people.
Yes. They picked the worst name they could possibly have.
Everybody was on board with the Admirals. That's what it was going to be. It's what your fans wanted, and you chose a name that nobody wanted, specifically to be annoying. So I think Washington will come back to being great fans again. It's just going to take Dan Snyder leaving, and it's going to take the team coming back to being competitive and really wiping that whole front office out.
They had a great history in Washington when they were the Redskins and going back.
Right.
And you can say what...
Listen, bring back the symbol, change the name. The symbol was made by the Native American tribes in the D.C. area. I'm a big person. If it's not my symbol, I have no right to be offended about anything. That's not my culture there. I have no say in it. So it's up to the Native American tribes who have said time and time again, listen, we designed that. We like it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, I don't get why it's a big deal. The name, fine, change the name, but make it the Washington football team and keep the symbol.
But learn the history of what Redskins really stood for. I mean, yes, it's turned into a derogatory name.
Just like anything else can.
But originally, Redskins was just because they used, to keep the sun off, they used red clay.
Correct.
And they named themselves that. Native Americans named themselves that. So it's an interesting history.
It is interesting. I actually learned that from some people I knew in the Ho-Chunk tribe when I lived out in that area. That's where I learned where that name came from, which is an interesting history. I've said it before. I'm just nervous with all of this. We're going to forget an amazing culture. If we keep getting rid of Native American names and symbols, then nobody's going to remember these people that were here and were the original American history. You know, it was one of my favorite things to learn growing up in Portage, Wisconsin, where I did, was learning about the Native American tribes that were there before. So that's where my concern comes into play. That's why I don't want that symbol to go away.
Right. And
because it's our culture. It's American culture, and I don't want to see it just whitewashed out of the mainstream.
Well, and how many times have I told you in the town we both grew up in, the symbol of the town is two Native Americans portaging their canoes.
Correct.
And I don't understand why the local high school doesn't use that as their logo on the side of the helmet. It just makes perfect sense. It honors the people who founded that area. But we're going down a path.
We're going down a path. You've seen where our conversations go. But that's where my concern was. Okay. It was. But I think Washington fans will come back, which is great. I think that'll be awesome to see them. So I don't agree with them being the worst fans. I think they're fans that have been just beaten up way too much. And being a Cubs fan back when they weren't trying to put a team on the field, I get it. I 100% get it.
Here's who I'm adding to the list of not great fans. We've already talked briefly about the obnoxious New England Patriots.
I mean, that's just that's a dumb thought.
It's my list. And I've talked to people who go there and they aren't treated well when they're at opposing fans aren't treated well at that stadium. So just
oh, you mean you're going to a place that's not yours where people don't want you there and you expect to be treated with sunshine and roses?
They just cheer. So on my list is another team.
You're going to New England, which is known. The people embrace the fact that they like to be obnoxious. And then you're surprised when you go there and they're exactly what they told you they were going to be.
Well, thank you for making my argument. Another team that has bad fans from the same division, the New York Jets.
Jets have great fans as well.
No, they don't.
They're extremely loyal to their team for no reason.
For absolutely no reason. That team hasn't won since Joe Willie Namath was there.
Right.
And
I mean, how can you say they're bad fans? They're there every single game.
Just because they're New Yorkers.
Oh, okay.
And my other one is, and yes, I'm just biased against certain fan bases, so sue me. The other one I have is Arizona. For the same reason, a lot of reasons, Tampa Bay, you have a lot of transient people there.
Sure.
They're actually fans of other teams.
Sure.
But that's where they winter.
I'm biased against Arizona because all Arizona fans say that Kurt Warner should be in the Hall of Fame, which isn't true. I mean,
every show you have to bring up Kurt
It's not
Warner.
every show. It's every third.
Oh, my God. It's almost every show.
It's every third.
Leave poor Kurt Warner alone.
Listen, I like Kurt Warner. He's an amazing analyst. He's a great story.
Former Green Bay Packer.
Yeah, he was a camp arm. Yeah, no, great story. I like Kurt Warner.
Story.
He would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Grocery store clerk.
Listen, Ron Santo, the greatest third baseman of the 60s, wasn't in the Hall of Fame until he died.
Yeah, that's
I think Kurt Warner, a career backup, who was benched 4 times as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Jerry Kramer, one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time, has to wait 40 years to be put in the Hall of Fame. And Kurt Warner, who was benched 4 times, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Listen, I don't care if Kurt Warner goes in the Hall of Fame, but the fact that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer bothers me a lot.
Not going to argue with it.
Arizona fans, I mean, yeah, I can agree with that. I tell you who now is on my list of terrible fans.
Who's that?
Is the Cleveland Browns.
Well, yeah, because they're cheering an awful human being. And they don't have any problem with anything he's done. If you can win games for us,
right,
we like you.
It bugs me a lot. It really bugs me a lot. It makes me really not like Cleveland fans at all.
I don't think that would happen in New England. That wouldn't happen in Green Bay. That wouldn't happen anywhere else. I mean, you look at Aaron Hernandez. The fans up there turned on him, and rightly so.
New England fans stuck by Aaron Hernandez until they couldn't anymore, which is fair.
He was innocent until proven guilty, but the minute that he was found out, Robert Kraft did the right thing.
Right.
The fans did the right thing.
They just didn't talk about it. They just moved on. Listen, he was a great player for us for a long time, and that's all we have to say about it. Which is a perfect way to handle it.
It's the same thing in Green Bay, to a much less extent, with Mark Chimura.
Correct. You know, they're just like, whatever. We're moving on from this. We're done.
And they've embraced him again. By the way,
I mean, there are not great situations that happen, but Deshaun Watson should not be cheered in Cleveland. He should not be in the NFL after 6 games, let alone, in my opinion, after a year. The fact that he came out and apologized, it's like, oh, okay, what are you apologizing for?
He is really? That had to be the least sincere apology I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, if you're going to stick with it, don't apologize. So what are you apologizing for? I'm apologizing for the women that I've affected. Oh, how?
Affected?
How? How have you affected their lives? Because you're apologizing for something you're saying before you didn't do. And now you're apologizing.
And then you paid them off.
So Cleveland fans are on my list now. Tampa Bay fans are definitely some of the worst fair weather fans. Nothing personal Tampa Bay fans, but everything personal Tampa Bay fans. Nobody's ever at the games. Jacksonville Jaguar fans embraced the team when they first came in the 90s and were winning. The problem is that you've given them nothing to cheer for since. And unfortunately in Jacksonville, you have it's technically the largest city in the United States, right? But metropolitan, it's the smallest. Land-wise, Jacksonville, Florida is the
Oh,
largest city in the United
I was going to
States.
say New York and LA
Metropolitan,
might argue that.
metropolitan, it's the smallest city, the second smallest NFL market when it comes to metropolitan-wise, just behind Green Bay.
It's bigger than Buffalo?
I believe it's bigger. I believe Buffalo's bigger.
Really?
Yeah, it's small. I remember I went to school down there. It's
Yeah, I know. And we went to
Jacksonville Metropolitan is basically 2 New York City blocks. I mean, it's not big. Like I said, landmass wise, it's a gigantic city, but metropolitan wise, I mean, you're in and out of it in a blink.
and plus that stadium's just not great.
The stadium's not great, but they've tried. But again, if you're not giving people something to cheer for to go there when there's so much to do in Florida, why are you going to go?
There's been so much talk about them moving to London. And I
They'll
hope
move to London.
I don't think it'll happen. I don't think you can have a team in Europe and play in the U.S.
No, I can see move to San Antonio, Austin area. Makes sense. I think people will go to games there. They're trying to keep the team in Jacksonville, which good for them. Good for them moving on from the Urban Meyer experiment. But you have a good team there now. You just need to build on it.
So going back a little bit, this will just touch on it real briefly and move on to the thing you've been worrying about. Was listening to local radio, and Mark Chmura, as we talked about,
Correct.
is on local radio. And he was talking about the disgusting things you see on a football field.
Uh-oh.
And they actually did a poll question, which I listened and I was shaking my head the entire drive. They said, he said that he's had, the thing that offended him most was boogers on a football. Okay, that would offend me. He didn't have a problem with pee on a football. Said that happens all the time. Guys just have to pee themselves and they go on and play.
Sure.
Said he played next to a guy who wasn't feeling well and had diarrhea.
Gross.
He said, that didn't bother me on the ball either. And Frank Winters, the former center for the Packers,
Yeah.
vomited on the football before he snapped it to Brett Favre.
Gross.
He didn't have a problem with that. The only thing that offended him was a booger on the football. So I look at you and going, of those 4, which would bother you most?
I mean, do you need me to answer that question or?
There are some things you don't want to know about professional sports.
I mean, fecal matter of any kind on anything is my least favorite of those 2 or those 4. I mean, like pee, whatever. I mean,
It's sterile. Not that I like it.
according to Dodgeball, it's sterile and you like the taste, but
Ew.
boogers.
Okay.
I mean, you want to talk about the most germ filled. Boogers is the most germ filled of bad germs. The whole job of, I have little kids, right? And I remember having to talk to them about not eating their boogers. And
Hey, it's supposedly good for digestion.
it's not, though, because literally that's what catches all of
Correct.
the cold germs and everything else that's in your body. So if you're talking about the thing that makes you the sickest, I mean, probably boogers are in there. But I have to imagine it being around fecal matter and poop is going to make you more sick than any of those things on the list. So
I would be doing a lot of end
fecal
runs.
matter.
I would be doing a lot of end runs just to try to avoid it. And proof positive why I would never be a professional football player, because that would be gross to me.
I mean, I can deal with any of them for those contracts. I mean, my disgusting meter only goes so far. If you're throwing me $1 million contracts, sure. I mean, I'll go and swim in a septic tank for a $70 million contract.
You'll do the Shawshank Redemption.
Whatever, dude. I'm in. I'll go up on skyscrapers and wash windows for the money those guys are making. I just need somebody to contact me that was willing to pay me to do it. I don't care. What do I got to lose? It's a cool story to tell how I died.
Life. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How did your dad die? He fell off a skyscraper washing windows.
I told you.
That's awesome.
I told you when you used to own a radio station and it was a 50,000 watt tower.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly high. I don't even remember how high it was.
All in.
But guy went up there to change a light bulb every 6 months, and it was a very large check that had to be written for him to go up and do that.
All in. It's mindless work that
Oh,
people aren't willing to do.
That is wrong. They are It is not mindless because they are focused.
They're focused, but what I'm just saying
Wax
versus
on, wax off.
like you're climbing up a tower, changing a light bulb, coming back down. Like you have to be focused. It's not easy work. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's singular focused work. Let me put it that way. For a lot of money. I'm in. I'm in.
Okay.
But yes, to answer your question, why? What's yours?
I kind of agree with Chewy with the booger. There's something just that there is a gag reflex. I mean, the worst thing, little kids are the most disgusting human beings on the face of the planet. They're also the most helpless and the most selfish.
Sure.
But
Kids and old people.
When they sneeze and it all just comes down, yeah. That's when I turned you over to your mother. And, that's what
this was a fun conversation. I'm really glad we got to have it.
Just was an interesting little bit of radio I heard. So, but that does bring me to the thing.
Let us know what you think out of those four. Mark in the comments below. And please tell us in the comments below that you never want us to have this conversation again. Because I don't. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified every time we drop a new episode. And you get to enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it. All right, what is this? What do you want to talk about?
It is the 40th anniversary of one of my all-time favorites, one of my two favorite all-time teams, the 82 Brewers.
Oh.
On that team, Cecil Cooper, Paul Molitor, Jim Gantner, Robin Yount, Gorman Thomas, Ben Ogilvie, Charlie Moore, the pitchers, Pete Vukovich, John Sutton. It was just an amazing team that you couldn't help fall in love with.
I'm so tired of hearing about the 82 Brewers. I am so tired of hearing about a team that didn't win the World Series.
Because Raleigh Fingers got hurt.
They still didn't win.
They would have won if Raleigh Fingers wasn't hurt. Even the Cardinals admit that.
Great.
Okay.
The Cardinals still have the banner. Great team. Great story. The way people in Milwaukee and in baseball in general talk about the 82 Brewers, you talk to them like they're freaking Murderers Row.
They were.
They weren't. Because Murderers Row swept the World Series.
They didn't have Raleigh Fingers hurt. They had nobody who could relieve.
They didn't have closers back in the day.
Oh, they did. They did. They had to use Pete freaking Ladd, who just is.
No, I'm talking to the 27 Murderers Row. Like, you just pitched the game.
Yeah, you just stayed in there. And Pete Vukovich did. They all did. It was just a fun team to watch. Look, Gorman Thomas always said he was either going to hit a home run, run into a wall, or strike out, which he did. You had the only player to ever win an MVP at two positions on there with Robin Yount.
Yep.
And there's one other team, son of mine, that is, you say it, oh, you always talk about the Brewers. They never won anything.
It's not just you.
Nobody else, no other team is talked about in that way except for one.
Sure.
The 69 Cubs.
I don't talk about the 69 Cubs.
Anybody who was around and was a fan of that team.
In a different aspect.
Same exact aspect.
In a different aspect. In a way that if the black cat didn't walk across the dugout.
If the dog eats a tree, he'll a canoe. It's one of my dad's old sayings.
Yeah.
The same type of love that you had for Ron Santo, Don Kessinger, Glenn Becker, Ernie Banks, Randy Hundley, Billy Williams, Rich Nye, who I got to catch in an All-Star game. It was great.
That is awesome.
Ken Holtzman got robbed of a perfect game by...
Right. You had one of the greatest infields of all time.
Well, the Cubs, 69? Cubs. It was not even close to one of the greatest of all time. It was a really solid infield. You had two Hall of Famers on the corners.
Correct. You had perennial All-Stars, borderline Hall of Famers.
No.
At second and short.
No, Don Kessinger and Glenn Becker are not even close to Hall of Famers, and they were not perennial All-Stars, but they were great for that team. But that same team is talked with the same amount of love as the 82 Brewers, which is why Kegman is there. And by the way, his name is Kegman. And the
thing says Barrel Man.
He is Kegman. They went politically correct on it and changed it to Barrel Man. His name is Kegman.
It didn't.
And which was the Brewers'
It was
mascot.
technically Beer Barrel Man when he first came out.
No, he was Kegman. For anybody who was a fan of the team, and I was when it first got here, it's Kegman. I don't care what it says. It was Kegman.
According to the Milwaukee Brewers website.
They went woke and changed it. His name was Kegman.
Looking it up.
Anyways, the Brewers team of that era, the 82 Brewers.
The original name was Beer Barrel Kegman.
That is a stupid name. Kegman
Original
for
name.
short.
So technically you're right,
Kegman.
but so is everybody else.
They used to have, you've seen the pictures with Kegman on the side of County Stadium.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
I think it's one of the best mascots ever. I love Kegman.
I wish they would have went
Beer
away
Barrel
from him.
Kegman.
Yeah, that's a great name. Beer Barrel Kegman coming down the slide. Yeah. Really.
Hey, Bernie's great too.
Bernie's great. But the 82 Brewers were such a fun team to watch. You had Harvey Keene, former Rookie of the Year.
Right.
Great manager. Your Uncle Bill knew him. Just handled the team so well. They were so much fun to watch. They did lose to St. Louis, who also honored that team in St. Louis and made me ill. But it was a team that when I was young, I didn't have. You had the 2016 Cubs.
Yeah.
And I love that team. But before then, it was either, for me, it was the 69 Cubs or the 82 Brewers. I had no winners. I just had no winners to cheer for. I had to go back to the big red machine of the early 70s, and they weren't my favorite team.
I mean, the Boston Red Sox had plenty of winners, and they don't talk about those teams.
Sure
The 69 Cubs are only talked about in the aspect of it was an addition to the curse.
Wait a minute. Boston fans on infinitum talk to all their teams. Don't you remember Aaron effing Boone, Bucky effing Dent?
Adding to a curse.
Which is
where those teams are talking about. The same as the Cubs. The Brewers talk about this 82 team. I didn't know they didn't win the World Series until I was in high school. The way you and every other Brewer fan talks about that team, I thought they won the World Series and then went to a game
they should have won.
And didn't see that. I was like, why does it just say AL champions? Where's the World Series banner? Well, they didn't win the World Series. What do you mean they didn't win the World Series? I mean, according to you, the 82 Brewers was God's gift to baseball, and they didn't win.
They got cursed in 81 because it was a strike year, so they didn't get to go. They did. Players, owners, curse. Didn't get to go to the World Series that year. 82 came around. It's almost like the 82 Brewers are the closest thing to a real team that Major League had for a movie team.
It's weird to me that people in Milwaukee talk about the 82 Brewers when you had a World Series team in Milwaukee in 1957.
Yeah, it was 25 years, and I will give you this, most Brewer fans forget that, and I wasn't alive when the Braves won the World Series, but I love baseball.
Right.
So I actually love that 57 team.
Even if you talk to people that were around at that time, they don't talk about the 57 Braves.
Nobody in Milwaukee
went to the World Series
won
against the Yankees back-to-back years. They won one and lost one.
I think they were so hurt when the Braves left town and just kind of unceremoniously left town.
Sure.
It's the only thing I can offer.
But the way you talk about the 82 Brewers is
the team of my youth.
Just ridiculous. It's the most overrated team.
It's not overrated.
It is because it didn't win the World Series.
Because Raleigh Fingers got hurt. And I will say, okay, and I will also say, I do not understand why Raleigh Fingers' number is retired in Milwaukee.
I don't know.
I can't answer that. He was there.
According to you, he's walked on water and would have won them the World Series had he been there. So, hey, you guys just knight the 82 Brewers as World Series champions anyway. So, obviously, he was the MVP of the World Series that he didn't play in.
No, he won the Cy Young and the MVP that year.
Right. But you might as well just give him the World Series MVP as well, because clearly he was there in Brewers' imagination, and you guys won the World Series in 82.
Yeah, if he would have pitched, even St. Louis fans say, yeah, we would have lost if Raleigh Fingers was healthy.
I'm sure they say that as they look at the banner in their stadium that says they're the World Series champions.
This is why, these are times like this are why I hate you at times.
Listen, I had the 03 Cubs that would have probably went on to win the World Series in 2003. I had the 08 Cubs that were the best team in baseball and then collapsed in the first round. I had the 15 Cubs that got swept on Back to the Future Day just to officially wrap the curse up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the 16 Cubs where we actually, won the World Series.
Yes.
And we celebrate.
And we do it.
Winning the World Series.
Okay, I went from 69 Cubs, and my first game ever watching a baseball Chicago Cub game was when Ernie Banks hit his 500th home run.
Yeah.
I was a fan from that moment on.
Sure. Kerry Wood, my all-time favorite player.
Yes.
I would have loved to see him win the World Series on any of those teams, but he didn't. He didn't. Brewers did not win the World Series.
Can we both agree on one thing about the 2003 Cubs?
Sure. It's Dusty Baker's fault.
Thank you. It was not Bartman's fault. It was.
We've had that conversation.
I know, but we haven't had it for a while, and
Dusty Baker.
We've got a lot
of blamed for that whole thing, and has never taken blame for it in a way that he should have. I could do a whole hour on Dusty Baker.
I think you have early in the show. But
I'm sure I have.
We've got a ton of new.
But back to you imagining.
Viewers. I'm not imagining. Look, I am not imagining a one. I'm just saying it was one of my most favorite teams of all time.
I know.
Because of just the personality.
But what do you always say? The same thing that every other Brewer fan always says. Well, yeah, if Raleigh Fingers wouldn't have gotten hurt, we would have won the World Series.
We would have.
You might as well just give us the banner.
I never said that. St. Louis won the World Series. They deserved the banner.
Right.
Willie McGee was a man possessed in that series, and it just killed everyone.
Yeah.
But
won the World Series.
Still love that team.
That's
their
fine.
40th anniversary.
I'm just tired of hearing people talk about a team. The Brewers celebrate a team that didn't win the World Series. You know how crazy that is as a fan base?
Well, wait a minute. They have no other team that's even been to the World Series, so it's not like they have a lot of options here.
Yeah.
Okay. They've had one even. I mean, they had the teams with the cheater on them.
I'm just saying, you guys have anniversaries and celebrate a team that didn't win the World Series.
It's all Milwaukee had.
You have the Braves who won in 57.
And they get forgotten because they're not celebrating in Atlanta, and Milwaukee can't retire or show the numbers of the Milwaukee Braves players, which I have a big problem with. Another thing baseball needs to change.
They didn't play. They were not Brewers. They were Braves. The Braves moved.
I don't care. They were Milwaukee Braves players. They should be able to honor the history of the Milwaukee Braves in Milwaukee and put their numbers up in that city. And I'd say the same thing about any of the other franchises that moved.
If St. Louis gets a new team in football, do you think they should be able to retire?
It's like the
numbers of the Rams?
Yeah.
You think Cleveland should be able to retire all the old numbers from the Rams that played there?
They should be able to for the Ravens that played in Cleveland at the time before the team moved.
Well, the team didn't get good until they moved. I mean, if we're being honest, Ray Lewis was the first draft pick of the Baltimore Ravens.
But the Milwaukee Braves, honestly, are one of the most forgotten teams in baseball history. They really are, because
it's true.
Atlanta doesn't celebrate Eddie Matthews. He's listed on their wall, but nobody in Atlanta really knows Eddie Matthews.
No.
He's known in Milwaukee, and he should be able to be honored in Milwaukee and at least be on the fence.
If Hank Aaron would have went in with an M on his helmet rather than an A,
that would have been wrong.
I think it would have been a different story and would have been remembered different. But
he played in Milwaukee as long as he played in Atlanta, but he should not have went in with an M on his helmet.
Yeah, he was 50-50, but he was a Brave his whole career.
Yeah, and he broke the record as an Atlanta Brave. He should have that on there. But he should be able to. He is honored in Milwaukee. He came back and had a cup of coffee at the end of his career.
Last 2 years,
and he should be honored as a Milwaukee Brave as well. So should Warren Spahn be able to be honored, because nobody in Atlanta knows who the heck Warren Spahn is.
I mean, that's not true.
Very few fans in Atlanta would acknowledge Warren Spahn ever played for the Braves. So he's a Milwaukee Brave.
I mean, I doubt you'd deny the fact that one of the greatest pitchers of all time played for your team.
I don't even know if he's on the wall in Atlanta. I'm sure he is.
I mean, he 100% is.
Sure he is.
So is Eddie Matthews.
Well, Eddie Matthews actually played down there for a while.
Yeah, he played for the Braves his entire career.
He
What are we
did.
talking about? What was the point of this?
The point of this is to celebrate the 82 Brewers.
Why?
40 years ago. It was a great team, and it was a
Congratulations,
fun
you won the AL championship.
team. Yes,
Great job.
And it should be celebrated. And also the 69 Cubs, because it's, I think,
Yeah, you didn't do anything because a black cat
anniversary.
got ran across the
should
dugout.
Ron Santo was right. Should have kicked that cat.
Yeah, he definitely should have. Why would we celebrate the 69 Cubs? They didn't win
Oh.
anything. It was a great team.
Chicago fans love the 69
Yeah,
Cubs.
of course
and
they do. The players.
And they celebrate.
Love the 84
They
Cubs.
love that team.
Nobody prances around pretending that they won a championship.
I don't think I've ever pranced. And nobody has ever pranced and celebrated that, but we do honor that team. I will
Brewers fans 100% prance around
I have not seen
with
one
the
Brewer.
Milwaukee Brewers. The 82 Brewers. The greatest team of all time.
Nobody's ever said that.
They 100% do.
I've never said that.
You haven't?
It's a great team. It was a fun team to watch.
Then again, you're a Brewers fan when they're good, and then you're a Cubs fan when the Cubs are good.
No,
so
I'm a Brewers fan and a Cubs fan at all times. And the only reason that is because there was no team in Milwaukee when I was that age.
Right.
The Brewers came, was already a Cubs fan. I'm a fan of both teams.
It's fair.
And if they play each other in the playoffs, I don't lose. I probably root for more for the Cubs. Because I was not going to root for the Ryan
depends
Brown.
who's in the series lead.
That's not true. Because I would never root for the Ryan Braun.
I still don't know what the point of this conversation was.
It's just a matter.
You just want to bring up the 82 Brewers.
I did. Gorman Thomas, Pete Vukovich,
Yeah.
Ben Ogilvy,
Great.
Robin Yount,
All
Ted
players
Simmons with the catcher.
without a World Series ring. It's great.
I know it's sad.
It's a good conversation.
Actually
What are we
sad.
talking about?
Don Sutton was a great pitcher on that team as well. He's the one who put him over the top. Hall of Famer.
Didn't put him over the top.
He actually did. He came in and won games down the
didn't.
stretch.
They didn't win the World Series. They did not go over the top. They lost in Game 7.
They won the American League
They
Championship.
sure did.
Leave me alone.
They sure did.
That's why I hate having. Anyways,
You were in charge of the show sheet
I
today.
know, and
You are the one that brought this up.
I know, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I'm celebrating those two teams that get forgotten in history.
Because they didn't win anything.
They did. Well, the Milwaukee at least won the American League pennant. They won.
Sure.
But to go back to
The
one thing,
Cubs have technically been to what, 7 or 8 World Series and lost
Before
in
you were
almost
alive.
all of them?
and you know what they both have in common? They had to win to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Unlike the baseball of today, where they have wild cards and lots of playoff teams. Let's let everybody in and make ourselves no better than basketball
Are you changing the subject?
as quickly as I
All
possibly
right.
can.
Just wanted to make sure. I'm glad you are because
Leave the 82 Brewers alone.
I didn't go after them
You always poo-poo them. I hate
because they didn't win anything.
they did. They won the American League Championship. Stop poo-pooing one of my
I
teams.
forgot we celebrate participation trophies
No, we
in
don't.
the World Series.
They won the American League Championship.
Yeah, that's great. It's a participation trophy.
No,
awesome.
They lost in the World Series. The Sud Series.
It's such an
as
old
it's
school
called.
baseball mentality, though.
The Sud
It
Series.
is. Well, we won the AL championship. That's awesome. You didn't win the championship. The NFC and AFC championships mean nothing.
That's not true.
Either you win the Super Bowl or you don't.
In Green Bay's case, they don't even get there anymore.
Right. You either win the World Series or you don't.
I still.
One team.
82 Brewers got to the World Series.
They did
Well
get
done.
there.
Well done, Robin Yount. Well done.
Our
Paul
last
Molitor.
show, you just had a whole rant about participation trophies, and
Yes.
you are giving the Brewers a participation trophy right now. The 82
No, I'm
Brewers
not.
are getting a participation trophy.
No, they won the American League pennant. At least
Great.
they won something. They had to win to get into the playoffs, which they did,
Yeah.
unlike baseball
They
teams
did.
now.
Yep, they definitely did.
That's our show for today
And then they lost the
That's-
World Series.
because Raleigh Finger wasn't there.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
We'll finish the
If
sentence
Raleigh
there.
Fingers had been there, we would have won the World Series.
They
So
would
in
have
the
won.
imagination of you and all Brewers fans, you won it because your best player wasn't there, so it doesn't count.
And that, well, he was a relief pitcher that actually relieved. He was there for 3 innings,
Yeah.
And on that, I think we've had a good show, and we need to close out the show.
God bless America. This is what I deal with. This is great. So anyways, yeah, I think we've had a good show. I really do. I'm confused about the entirety of it. So if you know what the heck we just talked about, please leave a comment below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. Before we head out, any last words?
No, I'm pretty much done at this point.
Thank God. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye, everybody.